Bear with me, I'm a little bit inept at public speaking. It's not my day job. My name's Kevin Sieler. I was in the Army from 2009 to 1989 to 2009, just over 21 years. I had to write these down because these were all the operations that I was directly or indirectly involved with, and these are just the major ones. Operation Just Cause, that was Panama, I'm sure well before you all were born. You might have heard Operation Desert Storm. That was the first incursion into Iraq and Kuwait. Operation Provide Promise, which was Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Kosovo. Gothic Serpent, which you guys probably have heard of but didn't know it was called that, and that was the whole Black Hawk Down thing. Uphold Democracy, that was Haiti. Enduring Freedom, which was Iraq, the second time around, and then Iraqi Freedom, which was, Enduring Freedom was Afghanistan, and Iraqi Freedom was Iraq. So hit me.
So first question is, when did you enlist?
August 1st, 1989. And the only reason I graduated high school is they wouldn't take me if I didn't graduate.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living in McMinnville.
And why did you decide to join?
I wasn't really going anywhere. I was kind of living out of my car and with different employers that I had, and mainly I wanted to serve my country, and my dad did it, his dad did it. It's a good deal. At the time it paid pretty well.
Why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
The Army was the only service that would let you pick your own job. If you join the Navy, you go where they stick you. If you join the Marine Corps, you're more or less an infantryman, unless you're kind of specialized in something else, which I wouldn't mind doing that either. The Air Force, you go where they put you, but I wanted to fly helicopters, and I scored high enough on my test to do that.
What do you recall from like the first days of your service?
Being treated like a doormat. Till the end of basic training, you weren't even called nothing but dirtbag or maggot or whatever else. But once you graduated, they started calling you soldier, and that was pretty cool.
What did it feel like for you?
What part?
The whole experience?
Very good. I have no real complaints that, I mean, obviously there was some crap sandwiches involved, but did me all right, and I'm doing all right now because of it.
Can you tell me about any like boot camp or training experience?
Gosh, I could spend an hour on that. I'll tell you about the grenade pit. We were all having to throw grenades, and of course they were all dummy grenades with just fuses and a blown out bottom of the grenade, and so it just pop. And, you know, but to graduate, you had to throw 2 live grenades, and we're all lined up, and they had a wall of railroad ties, and you could just barely see when you got to your turn the other guys throwing the hand grenades, and there was a big pile of tires, 55-gallon drum, and none of these guys could get the hand grenade out to that pile of tires or any, so it just looked like an M80 going off in a field. And I used to be a pitcher, so, well, actually I was third base and pitched, and so I said I can get that out to those tires. And so the cadre, he was a sergeant major at the time, which you never seen a sergeant major in basic training. But I guess they get all hands on deck during grenade training because it's dangerous and it's scary, and it's especially scary for the cadre, the drill sergeants. And he hands me my 2 grenades, and he goes, "Are you straight?" I said, "Yes, Sergeant Major." He goes, "All right." And then you have a wall, and you're supposed to get up, throw the grenade, and then get down behind the wall. And then there's grenade sump pits on each side. And I really wanted to see my grenade hit that pile of tires. And so I got up and I tossed it as hard as I could, and I'm sitting there watching it. And the next thing I know, my face is planted in the mud by that sergeant major, because you're not supposed to stand up and watch it. So I didn't get to throw my second grenade, but I did pass.
What was basic training like for you?
It sucked. But I met a lot of good guys from all over the place, people you wouldn't, if you've ever seen Forrest Gump, it's exactly like that. There's Fred from Texas and Tex from Fredericksburg and black, white, Hispanic, American Indian, they're all there.
I skipped that question because pretty much already answered it, but where exactly did you go?
I went to basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. Real crap hole, I might add. From there, I went to advanced individual training for Cobra helicopters, attack helicopters, at Fort Eustis, Virginia. From there, I went to Germany, and that was one of my enlistment choices. If I went an extra year, I got $1,500, and my choice in my first duty station, and I asked my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, we got married in Germany, where she'd want to go, and she said Europe. And so I said, all right, I'll pick Germany then. And I spent 3 years in Germany, and that was during the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was kind of very, very interesting for me. From there, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, which is a hole in the wall. I liked it there because I like to fish, but my wife hated it. Oh man, she hated it. From there, I went to Fort Hood, Texas, and from Fort Hood, Texas, I went to Korea for a year. Then I went back to Fort Hood, Texas. You could say I'm a local at Fort Hood. I spent almost 9 years at Fort Hood, Texas. And from there, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia. The whole time I was in Texas, though, we went to Africa, we went to Iraq, we went to Bosnia, we went to all those, Haiti, all those places.
So, what exactly was your job in the Army?
At first, I was I flew attack helicopters. I was a crewman on an AH-1 Cobra attack helicopter. And then the Army phased those out, and I went to Blackhawks, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with. Well, maybe you're not all familiar with it. But the Blackhawk helicopter, it's a utility helicopter that you can put anything on.
Do you remember like arriving in your first combat and what it was like?
Yes. That would have to be, well, the one of significance was probably Bosnia. And we had shipped our arms room with all our weapons ahead of us. Because I was stabilization forces, implementation forces were already there, and we were just picking up for them because you can't stay there forever, they gotta rotate them out. And so we had already shipped all our gear to Camp Comanche, which meant we shipped all our weapons, all our ammo, all our everything. All we had was our rucksacks, our A bags, B bags, and we rolled out in the middle of the night out of Slavinsky Broad, which is a town, and we're on a train. I remember hearing gunfire, and I'm looking out ahead, poking my head out of the train car, and there's tracer fire going back and forth. And I said, oh crap, we don't have any weapons, we don't have nothing, what are we gonna do? And I vowed I'd never make that mistake again. So when we went to Iraq, actually my whole unit, I probably shouldn't be telling tales out of school, but a lot of us went down to the pawn shops, bought private firearms, and stuck them in the helicopters under the panels or whatever, which isn't really looked kindly upon, but a lot of us knew the deal, and so.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
No. And you can say that with any American forces. Ounce for pound, nobody will beat us, ever. I mean, one casualty is a lot of casualties, but if you want to talk about a battle attrition, no, not a lot. But yeah, I have dead friends, no doubt about it.
Can you tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences?
I think Mr. McKinney has a picture of it. Man, I got a million, but this one is interesting. In Iraq, we were stopping every vehicle that was going out of Iraq into Syria. Because I don't know if you guys knew it or not, but Saddam Hussein was sneaking all his MiGs over into Syria so we wouldn't destroy them. So anyway, we're stopping every car and doing a checkpoint at the Syrian border, and there was a water truck going through that looked really weird. It was riding funny, like it didn't have any shocks or springs underneath it. Turns out it didn't. And So we stopped and we're looking at it, and the back of the water truck has a door on it. And we're like, water trucks don't have doors on them. So we stopped it and we opened that door, and it was full of gold. That's the truck. As you can tell, that's the pallet. That's a pallet. You'll probably wonder why it's only stacked 7 high. Gold is very heavy. You don't know it because everybody has jewelry and rings, and it just, it doesn't weigh that much. That's as many bars of gold we could get on a pallet and still have our 10K forklift be able to pick it up and load it. And that's the truck. And there's probably $1 trillion worth of gold in there, and it's all, I don't know, I'm no mathematician, but yeah, it was completely full of gold. And that was Uday and Qusay, which was Saddam Hussein's 2 sons, were trying to sneak out the entire Federal Reserve of Iraq into Syria, which I was there when we got those 2 as well. And that's another interesting story, because the Iraqis were terrified that those 2 wreaked havoc in Iraq, and the Iraqis were so afraid of them that our morticians had to do all the makeup and cinematics to rebuild them and put them, I guess, in the coffin or whatever, to convince them that, oh, the Americans actually did get these 2 guys, because the Iraqi people were terrified of those 2. Another memorable moment is the capture of Saddam Hussein. If you want to talk about that a little bit, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
There he is. That's the night we caught him. And what's interesting about that is we had good intelligence on him that he was at that farmhouse 2 or 3 separate times, and I'd been there 2 or 3 separate times, and we never caught him. He was like, he's not here. So on this night, we went back, and they were telling us just outside of Tikrit, he's there, and all the officers and NCOs are walking around the barns and the farmhouse and everything else. And we had a bunch of really lower listed privates who were brand new to the Army. We had them pulling perimeter, walking around the perimeter, guard duty. And one of the privates stepped on a prayer rug, and it was like thud hollow. So he pulled up the prayer rug, and there's a big styrofoam brick with a rope handle on it, and he pulled it up, and Saddam Hussein's looking up at this poor E2 private. I mean, he's never done anything in the Army yet, and he caught Saddam Hussein. Well, he didn't catch him, but he was the first one there. And Saddam Hussein looked up at him and said, my name's Saddam Hussein, I'm the president of Iraq, and I'm willing to negotiate. And there he is in the Tikrit Water Palace, which is interesting because that was one of his best and biggest palaces, and now he's a prisoner in it. And there he is again. It seems like yesterday to me, but you guys were probably not even born in '91. That's crazy. Wow. There we are, pushing him around again. And that's the hole we caught him in. It looked like a chimney in the ground. And it went down about 7-8 feet, and then there was a really small room. I would have went crazy if I had to stay in that for 6 months hiding from the Americans, but And the next picture is what he had on him if I concluded it. That was a box of about $700,000 in U.S. cash. I got plenty other ones, but we only have so much time.
Were you awarded any medals or citations, and how did you get them?
I was awarded the Bronze Star for that operation, catching Saddam Hussein. I was awarded the Air Medal, which is my favorite medal. It's not quite as high as the other ones. But that was, in Vietnam they gave them out for 25 combat flight hours. If you flew 25 combat flight hours, you got an Air Medal. And I got more flight time flying Blackhawks in Iraq in 6 months than I've gotten probably 4 years at Fort Hood. And just because we were on the go constantly. I was part of General Ordinaro's crew, and he was the commanding general of the 4th Infantry Division, and he liked to fly everywhere because all of Iraq was his. And I got 10 hours a day sometimes. And so I got combat air medal, and at the very beginning, they would give one out for every 300 flight hours, and then finally they said, no, you're getting one. If you put in 300 hours, you get one, and then you drive on another one. You'd see guys with 48 medals across them. 3 meritorious service awards, 6 Army Commendation medals, and 10 Army Achievement medals. And then, of course, all the other Fruit Loops. Thank you for coming, good conduct medal. Every campaign they give you a medal. I pretty much look like a Mexican dictator in my classroom. I got a lot of stuff. And a lot of it was just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Did you sustain any injuries from here?
None to speak of. Yeah, but none to speak of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my wisdom teeth and I couldn't fly for 6 weeks, 6 days in Bosnia. That's a funny story in its own right. My wisdom teeth were so bad that they were impacted and the roots were growing under my other molar roots. And the weight, they said, we can't do this in the dental clinic. You're gonna have to go up to the hospital and we're gonna have to schedule you an anesthesiologist because we're gonna have to put you out and it's gonna be a 3-hour operation, yada, yada, yada. Well, I got done, I was getting out of the Army in Bosnia and I said, I want my wisdom teeth out because it cost on the outside, it cost $7,000, $8,000 to do what they wanted to do to me. And I wanted to make sure they did it before I got out so I didn't have to pay for it on my own. And I go into this tent, because you have to get a dental exam before you exit the Army. I went into this tent, had mud on the floor. There was a dentist, and he was from Oregon, in fact, and he goes, are you flying today? I said, no, I don't think I'm flying today. And he goes, well, all right, you want to pull them now? I'm like, pull them? You can't pull my teeth out here in this combat zone. He goes, yeah, I can do it. You got rough ones. He took x-rays and everything. He goes, they look pretty rough, but I can do it. And he didn't even put me out. And I'm like, hey, you got any more Novocaine left in that needle? And he goes, no, dude. We're as deep as we can go, just power through it, and I did. And then my commander was all sorts of pissed off at me for doing that because I got taken off the flight schedule. Whenever you get Novocained up or anything like that, you're not going to fly. So.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
I was lucky because I was on a brand new helicopter that Raytheon, L3 Communications, General Dynamics was trying to sell to the Army. And it was a tactical operations center in the air. And so the project manager for that, his name was Colonel Hazelwood. Usually when you get new equipment, you have to do what's called a limited user test. And he said, screw it, we'll just do the limited user test in Iraq. What better way to put one? So as soon as I got to Iraq, I was in a prototype helicopter, which is kind of scary. But I had a lot of contractors kissing my butt because they really wanted to sell this helicopter to the Army. And so I had a bunch of civilians. They wouldn't go into combat with us, but they were right there if we needed anything. And they all had Iridium satellite phones and internet. I was one of the luckiest guys, other than the very, very top brass in Iraq, because I had a bunch of civilians that had a lot of money behind them. And I could call my wife back from Iraq. You know, not all the time, but once, twice a week. And I could email back and forth. None of my other buddies could do that, though.
What was the food like in the military?
Shitty. But I have to tell you this, better than the Iraqis' food, better than the Poles' food, better than the Turkish food. We have the best food of an army in the world. And honestly, that's one big thing. Whenever we do joint exercises, we like to trade MREs for whatever. And ours is by far much, much better. The Navy has even better food.
Did you have plenty of supplies while you were deployed?
Yes, except for when we first went into Iraq. Man, I should have shown you that picture. Sorry, I didn't even think about it. When we first went into Iraq, we took Iraq so fast. It was insane. When we landed into Crit, we were out of gas, we were out of water, we were out of food, we were out of ammo. Had the Iraqis, because we just hell's bells all the way to our objective, and thankfully the rest of the armed forces made a pretty good impression upon the Iraqis that don't mess with these guys. And so we landed and we were sitting ducks. And no medics, no nothing. In fact, the reason my finger looks like this is because on the way in, I was on the M240 and a pigeon, and the pigeons over there are as big as turkeys, I swear. A pigeon hit the front sight post of my gun, and it broke that pinky and just annihilated that pinky. And I had blood all over me from this pigeon. It stuck on the end of my gun on the front sight post. And the second mech, he goes, Sieler's hit, Sieler's hit. I'm like, nah, I'm all right. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I said that, feathers just filled up the whole cockpit. And I went to put my flight glove back on, and I thought my finger had come out, or my glove had come off. No, this finger was bent all the way around to the other side of my head. And the reason it stayed like that is because we didn't get any medics or any doctors for 3 weeks. That's how fast we took it. And so I just duct taped it up, 100 mile an hour, taped it, and drove on until the doctor seen it and goes, dude, there's nothing we can do for you now. That bone's already knitted. You're going to have to live with it. And so I have.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
Oh, yeah. I still do. Every stupid dream I have is about me having some sort of inspection I got to do tomorrow, and I'm always sitting there without my boots, or there's always a timeline in the Army, and there's always somebody over the top of you that wants you to get something done and get it done last week. And yeah, and the most stressful thing, yeah, is flying. Here's another story. In Iraq, there are no terrain features. It's just flat desert. Usually you can go, okay, there's the water tower, I know where that's at. There's the freaking bell tower, I know where that's at. And you can do what's called back azimuth to try and go at exactly where you're at. In Iraq, you can't do any of that stuff. And back when I was in there, GPS was around, but it wasn't what you guys have now with your cell phones and everything else. So you had to get on the map, and you had to look out and see where the heck you were going, or where you were at. And I'm sitting there and I'm on the map and I'm looking. I have no freaking idea where we're at. I don't know. I have no idea. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 3 holes appeared in the map I was looking down at. And I looked down and there's 3 holes in the floor and 3 holes in the hydraulic deck, and they were bullet holes. And I said, hey, I think we're taking fire. And from that point on, I always sat on my flak jacket. Never wore it, I sat on it.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
Yeah, not get shot. That's pretty lucky. No, not really. I want to say there was a couple of things I always had on me, but no, not really, I don't think. I'm sure other guys would give you a different answer, but nothing pops into my head about it.
How did people entertain themselves?
Lots of spades, dominoes. All right. There's a lot of downtime. I mean, you spend 98% of your time being incredibly bored, punctuated by 2% of your time being completely freaked the heck out, scared out of your pants. And so I was, like I said, I worked for those contractors. I had pretty much my own Humvee, which was their Humvee, and I would drive around Crit Air Base looking for spoils, war trophies, because the Iraqis knew that we knew exactly where their F-1 Mirages were at, their French fighter jets. And so they would get as far away from those jets as they could, dig a spider hole, put tin over the top of it, and cover it with dirt. Because they knew that the Americans were going to wax those airplanes right off the freaking ramp. And so I went out one time and I found one of those spider holes that they would hide in and sleep in. And I pulled the foam mattress off, and there was 2 AK-47s, but what was there was a really huge black scorpion. And I caught it. And I had a little wash tub, and I made him a little paradise. Where he hung out. That story gets even funnier because he was undefeated against the engineers, scorpions, because you put them together, the white ones, they had little white ones, which were just nasty. I was stung by a scorpion 3 times in Iraq, and it hurts. It feels like somebody's putting a cigar out on your arm. or in your boot, which is the second one I got. And anyway, it gets so hot over there, you can't sit in the sun. And I was out on a flight in Toombs, one of my other guys in my unit, he wanted to borrow my Scorpion. We called him Buff, because he always won, and he was huge. And I came back from the mission, and I was like, where's Buff at? Oh, he's dead. I'm like, he lost? And everybody goes, no. Toombs left him out in the sun all day. And that's one of the things we did for fun.
What did you do when you were on leave?
In Bosnia, I went to Budapest, and I don't even remember any of time on leave. You got 3 days, and I tried to drink as much beer and there was in Budapest to be had. I'm not telling you guys you should do anything like that. But the other times on leave, well, I went home and got married. Usually come back, I'd go skiing at Meadows or Timberline. We took leave and went to tourist places in Europe all the time. Usually there's vacations back home to see the family. Of course, now that you're married, you've got to take leave for her because she wants to see her family, and so you get roped into that.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual event?
Most of it. All right. Remember I told you about the Bosnia, how I didn't have any ammunition or guns or anything else? In Kuwait, my contractors were still working on the radios and the navigation systems on my helicopter. So my unit went forward. And I'm sitting here, hey, look, I do not want to fly solo all the way up to Tikrit. Let's get this thing working. Well, it didn't work out that way. All my unit left, and I'm stuck there with a bunch of civilians and a first mech and another pilot, and we didn't have any ammo because our unit took it all. Well, there was called amnesty boxes all over Camp Doha, and an amnesty box was if you had ammo, extra ammo, you weren't really supposed to walk around Kuwait with ammo, and so you'd throw all your ammo in that amnesty box. And then they had the Air Force SPs patrolling, and I was just walking off the flight line. I looked in there, and there's a whole bunch of ammo in there. And so I'm like, cool. So I'm reaching into this amnesty box, pulling out all this ammo that I'm not supposed to have. And one of the Air Force guys comes up and goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, nothing. And I just kept going. Hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. I'm like, I'm going north tomorrow. Screw you. I'm getting ammo because I don't have any. And he goes, all right, just hurry up. Don't let anybody else see you. So I'm grabbing it all, and I got it. I reached in as far as I could reach. So I went to the first mech's toolbox, and I grabbed his mechanical fingers, or little long things you can grab stuff that falls in the helicopter. And I'm pulling out ammo with that. And then finally, I could still see more in there, so I kicked it over, and 3 hand grenades rolled out of it. And of course, they're all safetied up and everything, but I'm like, whoa. But then I was like, cool, I got 3 hand grenades. And I took those. That's one of, I have a million funny events, but you just have to talk to me around a bonfire to hear them all.
So, who are the people in the photos that you showed us?
The guy pulling them out of the hole is CIA. The rest of them are senior leadership from the S2. S2 is the intelligence wing of any Army unit or Air Force unit, or I don't know what the Navy calls them. I don't really know any of them by name. I think I know General Ordinero, obviously, but just guys from the unit. There's so many of them, and you run into so many different ones you forget.
Wait. What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
Just like anybody. I don't know if you guys have ever held any jobs. You got your knuckleheads and your guys you know you can count on. There's nothing worse than an officer that thinks he knows everything. Just look at what's going on in Ukraine right now. They've lost 7 general officers in Ukraine. That would never happen in the U.S. Army because they don't have, the Russian Army doesn't have non-commissioned officers, lower leadership at all. When stuff starts going haywire, they'll send the guy in charge all the way up to the front. And that's what happens to him.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No, I really didn't. It wasn't a lot of time. I mean, there was a time if you wanted to make the effort. Like I said, 98% of your time is totally boredom. 2%, punctuated by 2%, absolute terror. But no, I didn't really keep a diary.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Oh, yes. I woke up in the morning and I put on my PT gear, my running shoes, and I sat on the bed and I'm like, Tammy goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I guess I'm doing what I've been doing for 20 years. She goes, "Well, aren't you going running?" I said, "No, I'm not." She goes, "Why not?" "Because I don't have to anymore." I remember that day. It was a big party too afterward.
Where were you when your service ended?
Fort Gordon, Germany. Fort Gordon, Georgia. Yeah. And I had, I think, 98 days of terminal leave. Usually you can only have 60, but because of Iraq, you obviously, it's called use or lose. You either use that leave or you're going to lose it. Well, when you were in Iraq and Afghanistan, you don't have an opportunity to use it because you can't go on leave while you're over there, so they let it accrue on that. And so I got a job being a contract instructor, and man, I was making $12,000 a month. And then Tammy, everybody asked me why I came back to Oregon. I always tell them because I got a bad drug problem. Drug problem? Yeah, my wife drugged me back here because I was making good money and I did not want to leave. But she says, "Nope, you've been dragging me all over the place for 20 years. We're going home." And that's why I'm back.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Like I said, I became a civilian contract instructor, which was pretty much what I was doing before I became a civilian. But now I'm getting paid what I was getting paid in the Army and my civilian paycheck, and life was good.
Did you work or go back to school when you got out?
I worked a little bit while I was in Georgia, like I said, until my drug problem came about. And then we came back here and we were looking for a house, and I wasn't really looking for a job because I got my retirement check. But then finally my wife said, "There's only so much grass you can mow around here. You gotta go get a job. I'm tired of looking at you." So I had to go get a job. I never went back to school. I tried college a little bit. You know, it's for some people. It was not for me. I couldn't do it. And I had the GI Bill, which would have, you know, Purple Heart. I could have wrote my own, gone to school for free, but I just don't like it. So what I did is, there was a narrow window where you could transfer your GI Bill to your spouse or your kids, and I barely fit that window, and so I gave my GI Bill to my 12-year-old daughter.
Did you make any close friendships following the service?
A million of them, yeah, millions of them. You don't get to not do that. I mean, you're in a foxhole with a guy forever, or in a tent. There's nothing worse than a tent full of smelly guys that haven't taken a shower in 4 weeks. You just make friends with them.
Did you join any veteran organizations?
Yeah, I think I was secretary for the American Legion in McMinnville for a while. Unbeknownst to me, I think I was just elected in there. I don't know if any of you all ever been in there. It's not just a bar, you can go in there and eat and everything, but there's a bunch of these tiles, and they paint tiles of guys with different awards, and my name's on a couple of them. And also I work for the VA now, Department of Veterans Affairs.
What did you go on to do as a career after the war? Kind of
Like I said, I work for the VA now. I'm a personal security specialist. I do all the background investigations for all the federal employees we hire. And pretty much say yay or nay, hire them or don't hire them. They're either bad guys or, yeah, they're good. And everybody gets one, from the housekeeper to the brain surgeon. So everybody that we hire or transfers internally, they got to come across my desk.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're doing things a lot different nowadays than they were doing it when I was in. But you know what? I heard that same thing from my dad. He said, guys got it easy now. And I say that now to the guys that are in there going through it now. I'm like, man, we didn't get to do all that. We didn't have stress cards we could throw out to the drill sergeant if we felt too stressed.
If in a veterans organization, what kind of activities does your post or association have?
We have a lot of, at the American Legion, we have a lot of drinkers with storytelling problems. There's a lot of running groups. I messed my knees up pretty bad in the Army from jumping out of airplanes and just running 6 miles every morning, it seems like. But I have a lot of friends that are hashers. I don't know if you guys know what hashing is, but it's a lot of vets are hashers. They just go on weekend runs. They call them drinkers with a running problem. Because at every stop there's a cooler of beer and
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
I guess anything you do for 20 years is gonna shape your thoughts and shape your actions. Gave me a lot of empathy, I'll tell you that much. Proudest moment of my life was during election day, the first elections Iraq had. And we had to guard the election stations because they didn't get to do that prior to us coming in there. And you hear all this stuff about voter fraud, whether it happened, whether it didn't. We didn't have any of those controls or constraints in Iraq. But what we did have was Indian ink. And everybody that went in and voted had to dip their finger, their index finger, I think it was their left index finger, in a little cup of Indian ink. And I don't know if you know what Indian ink is, but it's tattoo ink, and it'll come off, but it takes a week, 2 weeks for it to finally come off. And the proudest moment of my life was watching that woman come out. And she was so proud to show everybody that she voted. That was pretty cool.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. If you guys are thinking about doing it, it's a good deal. You get to see a lot of the world. And if you pick a good job, not like I did, I got to see every damn combat zone. It seems like we did in 20 years, but there's good training and good opportunities. And you'll have a lot of fun.
And lastly, just thank you for your service and thank you for coming in and sharing with us your experience.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.